Hi guys, so we're back with another week with episode 3 of House of the Dragons, and Marcello's joining me as well. So, episode 3, bit of a mixed bag that it's getting reviews online, but what did you think of this initial first impressions, mate?
Episode 3 really shocked the shit out of me because you may have remembered the last time I was lucky enough to be graced to be on Geek's channel. I floated this whole theory about how the Targaryen house is going to come together and sort of fight the Crab King, and how their strife during fighting the Crab King was going to be the initial thing that ripped them apart from the inside out. But in this episode, Daemon goes along and kills the Crab King. So my theory got shot to shit. So I was really surprised with that. And I was kind of disappointed with that. But I'm kind of happy with that because I don't know what they're doing. Also, this episode really showed that Rhaenyra is really, really frustrated that her father's kingdom looks at her in a particular way, and they look at her as just basically a vessel to propagate the future of House Targaryen, right? And they don't look at her like a leader. So I really like that scene where her frustrations boiled over, and she stabs the shit out of a boar, and she gets all her face bloody, and it was just amazing to see her anger simmer over from everything that she has had to deal with for the first 3 episodes here. Also, I was a really big fan of how they did the time jump, because I was really worried that I was going to get lost when they did the time jump. But when they did the time jump in this episode, they placed little sections of dialogue to sort of let you into just a little bit of what has happened between the families since we last saw them, but to not tell you everything. So I really like the way that they did that.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the time jump. So this episode's about 2 or 3 years after the last one. The King's now got his new family with another baby on the way. And Rhaenyra, as you said, just is now this sort of prize to be won, because everyone assumes that the little brother is going to take her position. And one of the scenes that really reminded me of the last episode of Game of Thrones was, well, not one of the scenes, there's quite a few scenes where guys are going to the king and they're basically pitching themselves or their son or their nephew or someone to hook up with her. And the scene that it reminded me of in Game of Thrones is in the last episode when they're all deciding who should be king, and some of them step forward and some of them don't, and it's, people are trying to make these alliances, and I hope that's going to be something that we're going to see in the show going forward. But with the time jumps, I don't know. But with the time jumps, I think it could get a little bit confusing as well, because say it jumps 10 years, that little boy that you've seen would be nearly a teenager.
No, I think that in many ways it's going to be discombobulating depending on how many times they do the time jumps, and if we as audience can sort of figure out where everybody is and where everybody was before they did the time jump. Also, I really think that all these men are going to jostle for position, but I really think Rhaenyra is going to slay all of them at one point in the show. I think
Really?
I think that she is going to be the smartest of them all. Look. I'm not saying that she's going to have an easy time of it. I'm not saying that she's going to have to deal with her best friend who is, by the way, her stepmother now. I'm not saying that she's going to have to do that, but I'm saying that she's going to play the Game of Thrones in such a way that she is going to show people one thing, but on her other hand, she's going to be doing something else to ensure her position and and ensure her succession on the throne. And once she does that, that may lead to a red wedding kind of situation for all the men in this series.
So you think she's going to do what Cersei done and get all her enemies in one room and just take them out at once?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
See, yeah, I think maybe in the long run you might be right, but I think that these characters that we met in this episode, I mentioned in our last chat that I think the show was missing a few B and C characters, but again, it's still early days. So I think that these guys like the Lannister, we got a few familiar other houses showing up and getting mentioned in this episode, but yeah, I think or I hope that these guys are going to be the B and C players, and we're going to get a bit more of the politics outside of House Targaryen, because we don't know where these other houses sit at the moment, or at least it's not perfectly clear to me.
That's the one thing that I really, really like about the show, because the one issue that I have with the original show is that there were so many plot lines going on at once, but this show has a singular focus. And for the most part, it is central to this one Targaryen house, and it is showing the politics within this house. I'm not saying that Rhaenyra's grand plan is going to happen this season. What I'm speculating may take 4, 5 seasons, but I think that she's going to get to a place where she is presented with an option. And the option that she's going to take is going to reform her kingdom and possibly be the tipping point to the Targaryen civil war that we hear a lot about.
Okay.
So I think she's going to get what she wants, but I think the steps that she is going to take to get what she wants eventually is going to be the one thing that leads to the war that we've all heard about.
Well, I think what's interesting about this episode is where she is very similar to how Daemon's position was in the first episode, that yes, he's a Targaryen and he's a powerful one and he's got a name, but he will never be king. He's just the sort of, the backup guy, and he's not even everyone's first choice for the backup. Whereas the position that she's in this episode, to me, felt exactly the same, that I've got a lot of power, but it's mostly in my name, and I'm never going to be able to do anything with it. So what Daemon is doing is he's trying to prove himself with this war. And we see that, when he finds out that the king's going to give him help, he doesn't take it particularly well, and he takes it out on a guy. But yeah, I think Rhaenyra is definitely maybe going to realise she's got more in common with her uncle, and that he's maybe not, or maybe he's not the adversary that she wants, but maybe he might be the ally that she needs, or he needs, or she needs. Yeah.
The thing that I think separates, for me personally, the reason why I like these characters so much more in these little sample of episodes that we had to the original series is because I think that these characters they're not all thankless sons of bitches yet.
Yeah, okay.
I care about Rhaenyra. I care about Daemon. I care about the best friend, the stepmother. I care about the king who's going to die. Mark my words, he will die. Mm-hmm. But I care about these people. So for me, watching these people do what they're going to do and then maybe go down the road that I was thinking of in 4 or 5 years, if the show goes that long, is going to be satisfying and heartbreaking for me. But, I just want to be clear. I don't know shit, because everything that I postulated the last time I was on your show went to crap. And we're only 3 episodes in. I mean, so we're only 3 episodes in. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just fascinated with, the politics and the setting up of all these dominoes that are going to fall primarily in season 1 and moving forward.
Well, yeah, we've got a lot to look forward to, but this episode I think was a fascinating insight for Viserys the king, because he's now got what he wanted, but it's a very careful what you wish for scenario. It's like, you know, if you met a genie and you said, I want to live forever, you know, you might just keep aging, but you'd still be alive, your body would deteriorate, you wouldn't be the young person that you were, whereas he's got his son, but it was at the cost of the woman that he loved, and he's now having to like double down his position of my daughter is going to be the one that's in charge when I'm gone, and everyone else wants the opposite. So how did you find Viserys the king in this episode?
I thought the actor of Viserys the King he did a fantastic job of showing the emotional toll that he has to deal with and the responsibilities that he has to deal with, along with the promises that he made to Rhaenyra. And I think that those questions that the realm wants the king to do, and his promise to Rhaenyra, and the way that the hand of the king is sort of maneuvering the king down the road of doing the status quo and not changing up anything and not destroying the realm, which is ridiculous, by the way, because women can rule just like men. I think that whole thing is going to be a contributing factor into him ultimately meeting his end. But I really felt all the politics and all the family drama really, really weigh on him in this episode, much more than the first 2 episodes that we got this year.
Did you think that the stag was going to kill him like it killed Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones? Because I thought, as soon as they mentioned that, I thought, if they kill him like that, that'll be terrible. And maybe it was just me, but I'm just waiting for him to die. There are certain scenes in this episode, like, I think there's one where he's sitting on the sort of, not the Iron Throne, but the throne that he has when they're travelling, and someone hands him a cup, and the first thought to me was, is that poisoned? Like, it's like I'm Columbo trying to figure out how he's going to die before he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, going back to my question, did you think they were a little bit heavy with the whole he's going to die in this episode? Because to me, they kept hinting at it, but then they never got anywhere.
No, I think that he is. I think that he is going to die, but I don't think it's going to be from any sneaky notions. I think he's going to die either because of illness, or he's not going to want to relinquish the promise that he made to Rhaenyra, and his court is going to overrule him and kill him. I don't think that this show has earned that moment yet. Not to make more comparisons to its predecessor, but I don't think this show has earned its red wedding moment yet. I don't think.
Okay, I agree with that, because when I rewatch Game of Thrones, I always think that Ned Stark dies in like the 4th episode, and it's not. It's like the second last episode that he dies in.
Yeah, it's the second to last episode, and when he dies, you're sitting there like an audience member going, "What the fuck? They just killed the main character of the series. Mm-hmm. Where in the bloody hell are we going?" So, look. I'm not saying that they're gonna chop his head off, but his life is not gonna end happy, and his death, when it eventually comes, I think that is going to be another wedge between Rhaenyra and her her ex-best friend.
Yeah.
Allison. I'm not too good with names, so you're gonna have to.
That's okay. It's only 3 episodes, man.
Yeah. That decision and whatever Rhaenyra has to do with it, if she causes it, that's gonna hurt even more. So, I'm fascinated to see how that is going to play out. But again, I don't think it's going to be something that happens just like that.
Well, speaking of Alison, I think she's going to be a very, very interesting character, because there's a scene in this episode where her father basically outlines his plan and says, look, this is either going to happen the way that I want, and if it doesn't, my grandson's still going to be king anyway. So I don't know what his long-term plan is, but I'm waiting for the moment when she realises she's got the power and that she's not the puppet, she's the master. Because when she realises that, and her dad says something that she doesn't like or she doesn't want to do, she's got the power to get rid of him. And I don't know how that game's going to go, if it's going to be up and down, but I think Alicent is going to get nasty, especially when there's kids involved, because all the mothers in Game of Thrones were very protective of their children.
That is going to be very, very interesting to see, but that sort of plays into my theory that eventually all the men are going to just now I don't know what that's going to make, the grand populace say, but I think that Alicent is going to at some point in the season really understand that the only thing that her father wants is to maintain power. And I think that she's going to understand that his maintaining power doesn't really factor in her happiness or factor in what she wants. So when she figures out that will be really fascinating. And it will be really interesting to see if that revelation leads to her possibly mending some bridges with Rhaenyra and coming back together with her and trying to do something, trying to, team up with her and trying to shore up some power with the king's court once the king isn't there.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because in Game of Thrones, there was a lot of that with the female characters getting married. Even Daenerys had to marry someone for how it looked. Cersei Lannister married pretty much everyone in Westeros that she had to. And yeah, I think when they introduce another, or a more, not more dominant, but someone that gets more screen time as a female character, because these are the only two. There's they're sort of, I think it's her auntie, the queen that never was, but we've not got a lot of strong, or we've not got a lot of idea of how the females in this world operate if you're not a royal and you're not from, like, money. Like, I'm just very interested to see how that works as well, because Game of Thrones did show us quite a bit of what normal life was like, whereas this show at the moment it is solely focused on the top cream of the crop kind of thing.
I think we're gonna get that. As much as I like the show for being narrow, I think we're gonna get that episode where the world goes wider, and we're gonna basically learn how the other people live, and how they deal with things. The most interesting scene to me in this episode is that scene when the king says to Rhaenyra, "All I want you to do is be happy, right? And I have left it up to you for you to go out and choose a husband of your own." And I'm thinking, I wonder if she's going to choose the guy, the knight that protects her. Because that would make a really interesting couple. And if something would happen to... Look, again, I'm postulating up the yin-yang, guys. We're only 3 episodes in. And I'm postulating for years to come. But if a wonderful relationship blossoms between those two, if they do end up getting hitched, and if something happens to him, and if that is the one thing that makes her go say, screw it, the hell with everything, I'm going to burn down the system to build my own system. Yeah,
I think you're right on that. As soon as they, one of them says they're in love with the other one, he's dead. He's fucking dead.
yeah. But all in all, I'm very, very impressed with the show. Look, as much as I've been comparing it to its predecessor in this conversation, I think that it's well deserved that I think the show is beginning to stand on its own 2 feet, and I think in the long run, the show is going to stand apart from its predecessor. Sure, it got a leg up because Game of Thrones did all the heavy lifting, but it still has to be a universe within itself in the world of Game of Thrones. and I think it's doing a great job at that so far.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. You know, it was an episode of two halves, and we've not spoke about it yet. But the sort of Matt Smith war, Targaryen, or not Targaryen, it's all about Targaryens, but the Matt Smith Daemon war stuff with the crab. We always say the Crab King, but it's a crab eater, but it doesn't matter. What did you think of that?
I thought this guy's crazy, and I thought this guy was gonna die. I was like, there's no fucking way that this guy is gonna do a suicide run, get surrounded by a bunch of the Crab King's guys, and live. So when the when the dragons showed up and laid waste to the Crab King's army, I was like, yes. You know, because again, I think, look, Daemon is a fascinating character. He's an evil person, but strangely enough, I think at the moment his heart is in the right place at the moment. And if excuse me, but if the Doctor was killed in just 3 episodes, I would have had a problem. You know, but because, you know, the other thing is that Damon has such a love and hate relationship with his family and his brother. So I thought a lot of that suicide run was to prove to himself and his brother that he could achieve something and that he could do something without having to be questioned by other people and without having to be sort of held down in his eyes by his brother. So I believe there were many different motivations for Daemon to do what he did. How he didn't die with all those guys shooting arrows at him, I don't know. But I think the scene was so well done. It was so well filmed. And the final shot of the episode where you just see Matt dragging the body of the Crab King and it just has a close-up of his face, I thought was amazing.
Do you think, though, that because we didn't see the war or more of the war, that you just didn't care about the villain? Because you didn't know what this guy was about, you didn't know what he wanted, you didn't really know his history, and then it felt like they were building him up, and then that was it. Like, I've not posted more of... Sorry, and you go.
No, I'm sorry. I was pissed that they did what they did because, as you know, I had this whole thing. And I was like, you tease an amazing character and then you kill him after 3 episodes? I'm like, what is that? So I was disappointed that we barely even knew anything about the Crab King. I was disappointed that they didn't build him up, but on further inspection, I've been thinking about this a little bit more, and this battle and the murder of the king was more about Daemon showing us what he could do, and showing us what he could do if he was properly motivated to do something. So I think this was more about showing how much of a badass Daemon was than showing the weird power of the Crab King.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I said it earlier on that Daemon has got something to prove because he can only reach a certain level. He can't go beyond unless something happens. So I think Rhaenyra might find herself not taking similar actions and starting a war, but certainly taking bold actions. But although, you know, I would say almost half the episode is spent catching up with Daemon, we don't get a lot of dialogue. Do you think that Matt Smith is maybe being underused?
No.
In this show?
No, I don't. I think all of this. I think all of this is going to pay off in the long run, and I don't think Matt Smith is being underused. I think that Matt Smith's character is just buying his time to when he can get himself in a position where he can move towards what he wants, and when he starts moving towards that direction, whatever it is, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be fascinating, and it's going to be heartbreaking. Mark my words. But in this episode, sure, he was shortchanged because he only had one line. He and he killed that one guy, and then he did a suicide run. But again, this has to be stressed. As much as I'm postulating for things that may never come or may never happen the way that I want them to, we're only 3 episodes into the show, and I'm thinking already about the long game and the end game of where these characters are going to end up. For all I know, Rhaenyra might end up dead at some point. So if that happens, what the hell's what? Like, if that happens, the entire show is flipped on his head, like it was when Stark got his head chopped off. I don't know anything. I'm just fascinated on what's going to happen. But to answer your question more directly, I don't think Matt Smith. I gotta stop saying that. Damon was shortchanged in this episode. Again, I thought this episode for him was more about showing what he could do when he was properly motivated, and he didn't need any dialogue to do that. Obviously, with the suicide run.
Yeah, I think looking at the battle though, I'm not. This is just my opinion. I've got no evidence whatsoever to back this up. It felt to me like they were maybe trying a different style with the Game of Thrones battles, but it also felt like it should have been bigger, and I think it was maybe COVID related. Because there's a lot of shows that I watch, like the first episode of Foundation, there's a scene where it's like supposed to be in a courtroom, and it's a massive room, and there's only 6 people in it, and I got the same vibe from that I got from Foundation, that there should be more here. Maybe it was a conscious decision, maybe it was a COVID thing, maybe it was both, but yeah, I liked how they aren't going into the full battles, because I said that in our last review, that Game of Thrones, when it started, didn't do the battles because it didn't have the money. You would just see them get on a horse and come back covered in mud and be like, yep, we fought a battle, we won, we lost, whatever. But yeah, I like that they're giving us things we're familiar with, but they're not overdoing it, at least at the moment.
That's a very interesting point that you brought up that I didn't consider. The size of, the army in this episode is kind of small, and it wouldn't surprise me if the number of people on set were, is because of the COVID protocols and things like that. But again, I think that Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, is just building up to something. I don't know what that is, but I can guarantee you, like I said, there's going to be blood. There's going to be battles, and there's going to be some sex on the way, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. You got to cut that out.
Yeah, I'll cut that out, don't worry.
Yeah.
But I won't ask you about your predictions for next week's episode. What I'm going to ask instead is, what or who would you like to see more of? Like, what's been set up so far, or who's been introduced that you want to see more of?
I would like to see more of Alicent, if that's what I would like to see more.
100% agree with you.
Yes, I would like to see more of her, because some points that you brought up in this conversation have made me realize that I've been kind of so fascinated with Rhaenyra that I've been kind of ignoring her, and I would like to see more. I would like to see more of their dynamic sort of played out on screen, and I would like to see, for example, like how they met, how their relationship got so good in the first place. And the other thing that we're not considering here that we're forgetting, we're gonna have to deal with time jumps. But when we deal with time jumps, there's gonna be older actresses playing these characters. So if the older actresses don't deliver in the way that I want them to deliver, in the way that their younger counterparts have delivered, am I going to be invested in the show as much if I don't like the adult version of these characters? So that's going to be an interesting experiment for me, and to see if the show can keep me there with the older version of these characters.
Yeah, I think time jumps are going to really push some of the casual viewers, because we're hardcore fans. Obviously, you're watching a YouTube channel about guys talking about geek culture, but for the casual viewer, I think it might be too confusing. But what you said with Alicent, 100% agree. I want to see more of her. I think the dynamic, as you said, is very interesting, because not only as her best friend, now her stepmother. She's also her queen. So if it's kind of which one's there, because one's the daughter of the king, but then one's the queen, and then where's that power going? So I want to see how that dynamic plays out, and I want to see more with Alicent and her father. How far is this guy going to go? What's he willing to do as well?
Also, the guy that we're sort of forgetting here is the I think he's called the Snake King, the guy with the color gentleman with the dress.
Oh yeah, I'll need to edit this out.
The sneeze steak.
Yes, Corlys Valerian.
Yes, Corlys. I am very interested to see if that guy can hold it together. Because if you guys remember, I think it was in episode 2 where he really came to Daemon after his proposal, of marriage of his youngest daughter to the king was shot down. And he disrespected the king in Daemon's presence. And Daemon said, listen, I can speak about my brother the way I want, but you can't. So I'm really interested to see if his need for ambition is going to ultimately lead to his end. I think, I don't know how long he's gonna be here, but I'm very, very interested to see how he's gonna go about getting what he wants, and who he's gonna try and make alliances with to get that.
No, yeah, it's a good point, because I don't know if there's going to be any blowback for him about defying the king and going off to his brother. It doesn't seem so, because it would have came up in those 2 or 3 years that we missed, I think. But yeah, because his wife's a Targaryen as well, so that's going to be very interesting to see how that one goes. Yeah,
speaking about his wife, who I think his wife was sort of underestimating Rhaenyra's view on politics. I mean, his wife really gave Rhaenyra a good roadmap about how the world of men work in Game of Thrones. But I really think, look, I might be putting way too much confidence in the younger version of Rhaenyra, but I really think that the younger version of Rhaenyra is going to get to a point where she's just going to cause all sorts of fucking hell for everyone. And I just can't wait to see her rise and strike down anybody that is in her way. But again, we're probably a long way away from that happening.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see, but I think we'll call it a day there, man. So thanks for coming on again. And before we go, where can people find you if they want to look for you?
Yeah, if you guys want to find me and talk to me about Game of Thrones or anything having to do with geeky culture, the best place to find me is on Twitter. I'm at CreekFanatic88, but I was happy to guest on your channel again and talk more Game of Thrones with you. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to do it again, man.